Imagine, you're a newly appointed leader. Now that's a great thing for your team because despite rumors to the contrary, you do know some things. For example, you know for a fact that there's a challenge coming your way. And while some of your teammates have also seen what the competition can do, and they should know that things need to change, you have a plan to stay in business. The plan is quite bold, and you are worried about your team's reaction, so you sit down with the one person who actually knows things. He tells you that leadership is not a popularity contest.
Half the men hate you already, Lord Commander. Do it.
And he goes on to explain that good leaders have the strength to do what needs to be done.
With luck, you will find the strength to do what needs to be done.
That's all you needed to hear. You're the boss. You know what needs to change. So full of confidence, you announce what is going to happen, and then you tell your team to go and execute. And then they go and execute. I think most people would agree that Jon died because of his unwavering sense of honor. It's certainly what the show's creators believe.
At the end of the day, Jon is his father's son. He's the person who's honorable to a fault and does the right thing even when the right thing is extremely dangerous to him personally.
But I would argue that Jon's failure was not his sense of honor, but a lack of leadership skills.
Do you know what leadership means, Lord Snow?
Specifically, that he didn't know how to communicate with his people in a way that would have been necessary for a change of this size. After all, to have a fighting chance against the army of the undead, he proposed an alliance with the Wildlings, the mortal enemies of the Night's Watch for over 8,000 years. Wildlings who just days ago killed 50 of the 100 brothers at Castle Black. So what went wrong? Because his assessment of the most likely reaction was on point.
Half the men will hate me the moment I give the order.
The problem was, Jon was frighteningly unaware of what his men needed to accept this idea, and how insecure his position was as a leader. He tried to force this change only with the authority provided by his title of Lord Commander.
Are you refusing to obey my order?
His leadership style boiled down to, I'm the boss, we do what I say. He seemingly forgot that his predecessor was stabbed in the back, and that the main argument for his own ascension was his heroic conduct during the Wildling attack on Castle Black.
He led the mission to avenge Lord Commander Mormont. Mormont himself chose Jon to be his steward. He saw something in Jon, and now we've all seen it too. He may be young, but he's the commander we turned to when the night was darkest.
And he's the commander who would have been saved by understanding the Kubler-Ross change curve. Even if you haven't heard of psychologist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I'm sure that you heard of her work, The 5 Stages of Grief, which describe how the human mind copes with personal loss or other types of shock. This flow is so commonly observable that the stages were soon adapted to explain the emotions experienced during changes in general. When it comes to groups of people, the level of morale and confidence, and even organizational performance over time, can be described in 7 stages. It's important to note that the progression through the stages is not linear. Different people might go through these stages at different speeds. Some might skip a few, regress, or even get stuck. The 7 stages are shock.
You bring Wildlings here, through our gates.
Denial.
You don't mean it, do you? Telling the Wildlings you want to make peace. You're just doing it to trick them.
Frustration.
They burnt my village. They put an arrow through my father's head right in front of me. They butchered my mother.
Depression.
They slaughtered us. So why is he saving him? The one with the red beard. He led the raid on my village.
Oh, Ollie.
How can he trust him?
Hopefully you continue on to experimentation, acceptance, and finally integration. Now, the dip in the middle of the curve is commonly referred to as the Valley of Despair, and is the most chaotic and dangerous time for a leader as anger, fear, doubt, and resistance are at their peak. If mismanaged, morale could be shattered beyond repair, causing a long-term decline in performance, a rise in attrition, or flat-out non-cooperation. The flow of emotional reactions along the change curve cannot and should not be stopped. The role of leadership is to reduce the negative consequences and accelerate change. How? You guessed it, communication. By knowing about the emotional flow of the change curve, it's possible to plan appropriate communication for each of the stages to help people accept and adapt more quickly. After the initial announcement, communicate frequently and in small, to-the-point pieces. A one-time all-hands meeting simply won't do, as shock and denial prevents the retention of information. People won't remember all the relevant pieces, or what's worse, they will misremember some parts of it, creating misinformation and knowledge gaps. It's crucial to address these as they appear, because otherwise people will fill in the gaps themselves, usually with gossip. And gossip tends to spiral towards the worst-case scenarios, which in turn fuel the feelings of anger and frustration. Throughout frustration and depression, and remember, this is the real danger zone, there needs to be an appropriate amount of time set aside for active listening, two-way communication, one-on-one discussions, group complaining sessions, brainstorming, and emotional support. While there needs to be a focus on the positives and why the change initiative is great, there's no sense in hiding or denying the negative aspects brought up by the group. On the contrary, constructive feedback should be appreciated and, if possible, explored and incorporated. Thank you for your input should be the beginning of a discussion, not the end of it.
Lord Commander, it is my duty to tell you I believe this mission to be reckless, foolhardy, and an insult to all the brothers who have died fighting the wildlands.
As always, thank you for your honesty.
As always, meaning this is not the first time Sir Alistair tried to broach the topic. And this, despite him losing the election for Lord Commander by a single vote. Instead of trying to undermine his boss, he's providing sound advice. But Jon won't listen. And in the eternal words of Andy Stanley, leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say. As a leader, opposition might be difficult to handle, maybe even on a personal level. But resistance in itself is not inherently negative. Because what's the worst that can happen? During these discussions, people feel heard, and more often than not, they gain a better understanding of the overall plan. You might even end up with some amazing ideas that can help with a successful implementation. People dislike change only when they have no say in the what and the how of it. If they get ownership of at least part of the how, they'll be much more likely to provide support, even if they continue to consider the overall plan flawed. Emotions need to be handled with care and sensitivity, and communication must be tailored according to how individuals or groups are affected. Change agents need to be convinced, appointed, and enlisted. Senior members of the team and subject matter experts who people trust and follow. In Jon's case, this could have been Maester Aemon speaking on his behalf, or even Sir Alistair, who he named First Ranger, basically his right-hand man, if he had taken the time to sit down with him and get his support, and subsequently the support of those loyal to him. Increasing levels of support would have made possible for the Night's Watch to go on to the next steps, experimentation and acceptance. Depending on the team and its unique situation, these are the stages where education and training can begin and pilot programs can be introduced. The question that leadership needs to answer is no longer whether or not the change initiative is happening, but rather what this change will look like. What's the direction we're taking? Throughout these stages, the previously built foundation of support, the top-down, bottom-up communication, needs to continue as the organization takes its first precarious steps towards implementation. Opportunities need to be created for everyone to experience the positive effects, and each milestone should be celebrated. Finally, once integration is reached, the benefits should be clearly visible and success can be truly celebrated. Now, whatever form those celebrations take, they should include recognition, appreciating the hard work that the members of the team have put in. And even though this is the final stage of the curve, it's important to understand that it's still just a beginning. So leadership needs to stay in contact and continue to support until integration becomes the new normal and the old ways are out of practice. Throughout the Kubler-Ross change curve, it's communication that can reduce negative consequences and accelerate acceptance and adoption of change. And especially in the Valley of Despair, active listening and true dialogue needs to happen. A tool that might help navigate the state of mind of the people involved and engage them accordingly is a stakeholder map. While the usual stakeholder map creates a grid based on the level of influence and the level of interest of the people involved, for Jon's particular situation, it might be more helpful to divide the speaking characters of the Night's Watch between those who are against and those who are for Jon and his plan. After Jon got the job, on the right side we had Maester Aemon, Sam, Ollie, and Ed. And on the left, Sir Alistair and, within his circle of influence, Janos Slynt, who was soon executed for disobeying a direct order, so we can take him off the board immediately. We don't know how First Builder Yarvik and First Steward Marsh voted, so for now we'll put them down as neutral parties with a fair amount of influence given their rank. Once Jon announced his decision, we see Yarvik and Marsh outraged, and Sir Alistair shaking his head. Out of Jon's closest friends, Sam proves his promoter status by standing up for him. But Ed is shocked and won't have any of this. Although later he does accompany Jon when he goes to the Wildlings. And finally, we already know how Ollie slowly but surely shifted into deep opposition. To make matters worse, Maester Aemon dies soon after Jon shares his plan, and subsequently Sam decides that it would be better both for him and the Night's Watch if he'd leave to become a Maester. This is the situation that Jon could and should have realized and addressed accordingly, encouraging constructive discussions while keeping a steady course. Sam might not have needed convincing.
There is good farmland in the gift. Land that no one uses now.
But when it comes to Ollie...
Why do you think the farmers abandoned those villages? Because the Wildlings raided them for years. Cut them down. Just like they did this boy's people.
A good old "winter is coming" is simply not enough.
I know this is hard for you. But winter is coming.
To quote another Jon, Dr. John Carter, in a change process of any kind, if it's significant, you have to win over the hearts and the minds of people. Hearts and minds. So it was all the more surprising to see Jon Snow deliver an inspiring, hearts and minds changing speech to the Wildlings, driving home the "what's in it for me" that was on everyone's mind.
I lost my father, my uncle, and 2 brothers fighting the damn crows.
I'm not asking you to forget your dead. I'll never forget mine. I lost 50 brothers the night that Mance attacked the wall. But I'm asking you to think about your children now. They'll never have children of their own if we don't band together. The long night is coming, and the dead come with it. No clan can stop them. The free folk can't stop them, the Night's Watch can't stop them, and all the Southern Kings can't stop them. Only together. All of us. And even then it may not be enough, but at least we'll give the fuckers a fight.
Imagine if he delivered this rousing speech to his own man. But of course, this in itself was not enough. Success came only after a trusted change agent spoke on his behalf.
You vouch for this man, Tormund.
He's prettier than both my daughters. But he knows how to fight. He's young, but he knows how to lead. He didn't have to come to Hardhome. He came because he needs us. And we need him.
Jon might have understood the big picture and what needed to be done to save the whole of humanity. But among his brothers, he ended up virtually alone. Something even strangers picked up on.
My little girl's got on. They're gonna let them pass the wall even if you're not there.
You have my word. I've given orders.
He gave orders. He trusted in authority provided by his title. And he expected people to follow without listening to their concerns, without gaining their trust, and without winning their hearts and minds. Ultimately, Jon's failure had nothing to do with his sense of honor. It was not understanding that it's not organizations that change, it's people. Now, imagine you're a newly appointed leader. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this episode on the Kubler-Ross change curve. I really love how it helps leaders to serve their people better when it comes to significant change. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more video essays like this, focusing on leadership, change management, and growth mindset, always through the example set by a character from a movie or TV series. And please leave a comment if there's a particular topic or screen leader you'd be interested in. Thanks, and see you next time.